I'm the founder, CEO, and executive director, wear many hats, for the We Can Win Foundation Incorporated. We've been in existence since 2021, and the way this thing happened was kind of strange. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, was diagnosed in 2012, and throughout my journey, got connected with UT Southwestern Radiation Oncology here in Dallas, being sent there by the VA. In talking with my doctor, Dr. Hanan, and my nurse practitioner, Tamara Dickinson, we began to talk about the importance of what can I do to get these African American men or men of color in to get their PSA checked, because looking at the numbers, African American men were dying at twice the rate of any other race. It just didn't make sense to me for a disease that's 99% curable. That's how the We Can Win Foundation got started. In 2012, I was on my way on vacation to Jamaica. 2 weeks prior to that, my doctor called me in and says, I need you to come back in because something's just not sitting right with me as far as your PSA is concerned. So I go into my doctor's office and he starts talking to me about this thing called PSA. And I'm like, okay, so what is PSA? I had no clue at 52 years old what PSA was. He says, well, PSA are the numbers that determine whether or not you have prostate cancer and how far advanced it is. And so I said, okay, so what is prostate cancer? Again, I'm 52 years old, African American, living a really good life, and had no idea what prostate cancer was. He took me through the whole thing about what PSA was, prostate specific antigen. Those are the numbers that determine whether or not you have prostate cancer. If you're anywhere above 4.0, then it's reason to take a closer look. So I said, okay, well, where is the prostate? So he began to tell me about it. And so he says, look, your PSA numbers went from 2.5 last year to over 5.5 this year. So that tells me that something is wrong. He made an appointment for me to go and have a biopsy. First time I'd ever had a biopsy. Doctor said, okay, we'll be in touch. And I get this call that Friday, and doctor tells me, he says, Mr. Wright, this is Palo Alto Medical Foundation calling. We just wanted to inform you that we found a small trace of prostate cancer about the size of the tip of an ink pen, but we don't want you to worry about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Did you just tell me I had cancer and you told me in the same breath not to worry about it? I'm like, really? So this is what we're gonna do? This is how we do this. You call a patient, tell them they have cancer, then you tell them don't worry about it. So I went on vacation. When I got back, we met with a panel of doctors. I mean, we had dietitians, radiologists, urologists. It was crazy. Just a whole bunch of medical professionals, and began to discuss options. The option that I chose was called active surveillance, watch and wait. Basically, we did nothing but go every 3 months and have a blood test to make sure there was no more progression on my PSA. That did me well, because put me at peace knowing that with all the lingo about prostate cancer, knowing that I have a group of medical professionals, even at the VA, that allowed me to watch this thing. And so in 2017, my radiologist says, I'm seeing some movement. I'm gonna send you to UT Southwestern Radiation Oncology, and I wanna have them take a look at it. I was a little bit antsy and a little anxious, and because I didn't know what they were gonna tell me. They actually sat close to me and looked me right in my eyes and says, look, after reviewing your records, we wanna assure you that prostate cancer is not gonna kill you. So I'm like, okay, well, that's really good to know. They decided that I was a good candidate for this seed therapy. And all I had to do was 5 treatments of radiation. It was very successful, and here I am today. In 2024, I live a relatively healthy life. When I got the news that I had prostate cancer, like anyone hearing for the first time that they had cancer, my mind was all over the place. Am I gonna die? Am I gonna be around to see my grandchildren graduate from high school? If I die, what is my wife gonna do? And do I have enough insurance to cover? So you have a myriad of things that goes through your mind, but the emotion was, I'm at a place where I was with friends and I actually broke down crying, because the last thing I wanted to hear was that I had any kind of cancer, especially not knowing what prostate cancer was all about and what it could do to the body. The emotional part of this thing is it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. We can't be silent, because prostate cancer is a silent killer. So I began to call people, call my sisters, of course called my wife and my pastor at the time, and began to have these conversations with them. Even after diagnosis, it's found me at times just sitting alone in the office, because A lot of men that have prostate cancer go through loneliness and depression. And of course, being men, we try to be so big and bad and tough. So we say, nah, that's not going to affect us like that. But I found myself in that spot a couple of times. That's one of the reasons why I say it takes a village to get you through this thing, because one really devastating time when I didn't even know I was in that state of mind, but I was sitting in my office and I was beginning to think about, where am I going? Am I going to be around for another 10 years? And I've already been assured that it's not going to kill me, but that's what you told me. Well, how true is it? And my wife just happened to walk in the office and say, hey, you okay? Well, I was like, no, not really. For some reason, I feel really sad about this thing. She came in, we talked about it, assured me, hey, look, you've already been told this thing's not gonna kill you. So you got us, we're here for you. And we have to have those people there that'll say, hey, look, calm down, take it easy, come on back to yourself. The doctors have already said this is not gonna kill you. So let's get into another space. This thing doesn't have to kill me. And one thing I pulled from the UT Southwestern people is that 99 out of 100 men will die with prostate cancer, but not from prostate cancer. So that kind of, put a smile on my face. My prostate cancer was diagnosed from my time in Vietnam from Agent Orange. Since then, we've included veterans in the conversation as well, because we want to make sure not only men of color, because prostate cancer affects men across the spectrum. We not only want to bring our message to these men, we want to make sure that veterans understand that there's some benefits as far as health is concerned when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer because of your military service. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of organizations in the United States that focus primarily on African American men. And so that's what we do. We focus primarily in the African American communities, talking about health equity and health inequities. And I recently got certified in some areas of health equity and as well as health inequities, and I was stunned to find out, we live in 2024 and there's still hospitals that African Americans can't go to. So we're not getting the same treatment. We don't have access to the same medical treatment as our counterparts do. And to me, that's totally unfair in 2024. So we push to make sure that everybody knows that there's treatments available. Insurance, and a lot of times, don't cover it. So I go to Washington, D.C. every year with a group. We advocate on the Hill, trying to get our legislative leaders, senators and congressmen to sign off on bills, especially in the African American space, to eliminate the cost of a PSA test. I've been put on the spot a couple of times about the fact that it only costs $35 to $65 for a PSA test. So my response to that is always this: $35 to $65 may not be a lot for me, may not be a lot for you, but $35 to $65 in an African American family where only the husband is working, making minimum wages, has a wife and 2 children, $65 for a PSA test could be the difference in whether or not they're going to eat that particular week. It's important that the leaders here in America, especially in a time like this, understand that we have to make sure that we give African American men access for free to have a 3-second blood test. Simple as that. We're going to continue to fight the fight at the We Can Win Foundation to make sure that all men are created equal under medical terms, and we want to make sure that insurance companies are covering this cost, and that these men have access to get this test done. The misconception is that it won't happen to me, and that's the main misconception that caused African American men to die from prostate cancer. The main thing I talk about is the importance of early detection and screening, because if this disease is caught early enough, then it's preventable, it's treatable. This is a disease that we have to talk about it. No one can defeat this disease alone, but together we can win. And that's how we came up with our slogan, the name of our foundation. It takes a village. You can't do this by yourself. So those misconceptions that it's not going to affect you, nah, it'll get you sooner or later. One of our catchphrases is, a cure is within reach and distance. And that's literal. It's right there in hand's reach. But you gotta go out. You gotta get the exam. So we tell men, if you're 40 years old and you're considered at risk, meaning someone in your family had prostate cancer or your immediate family, then you should start testing PSA at 40 years old. If you're not at risk, then you should start testing at 45. Again, in the medical community, that's still being debated. From what I understand, that's only true in the African American community, which I don't understand. I just don't get it. So we talk about it. We're going to continue to talk about it. We're going to continue to make some noise. We're not going to be silent about this disease. And we're going to keep telling men that it's important to go and have a PSA test done every year. On my journey, I was going every 3 months. Now I go once a year. My PSA when I had this procedure was 10.0. My PSA 2 weeks ago, when I went for my appointment, was 0.06. So there's treatments that work. The treatment that I had was at one point a clinical trial. When I had the treatment, it was no longer a clinical trial. In our communities, when clinical trials are mentioned, first thing that happens is we digress back to Tuskegee. We think about what happened back then, but that can hopefully never happen again. To me, man, clinical research, because of technological world that we live in, clinical research has advanced so much. At some point, prostate cancer is going to be like a common cold to treat it. Doctors are continually working on cures. They're working on treatment options and so forth and so on. Clinical research to me is very important because it will allow the medical community to look into ways and means to beat this disease. If we can't test, we don't know. If we don't use clinical trials to clinical research to look deeper into this disease, then it's never going to be cured. When it comes to clinical research, the medical community has to put the African American community, male community, at peace, at rest, to let them know, look, you're not going to be a guinea pig. It's not something that we're testing on you. You know, by law, we can't do that. And maybe that'll put us at ease. We deserve the same rights as anybody else. Sometimes it gets hard pressed in our positions. I appreciate the boldness that God has given me to talk about it. It doesn't matter with me, you know, how you feel about me personally. But at the end of the day, how is this going to affect my community? The people at Acclimate has just been wonderful with us, helping us to, you know, get the word out, putting it across their network. This relationship really turned into be something grand for us. If you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer, I think that the more people that hears your story, along with mine and along with other men that's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, you all should really connect with Acclimate now included, because we need to make sure that these stories are publicized, that they're put out across networks so they'll reach hundreds of thousands of people. Tell your story. It's important to tell your story. My name is Bishop Dr. Eddie Wright, and I'm now included.